We figure that's probably where the mess hall was for the
because it looks like a big tent, right?
Yeah.
So this road and this edge is this right here.
Just up there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, where it goes up
Yeah.
and curves?
Yep, it curves a bit.
Even where they're working in there looks relatively flat, and we know it's not, so.
Yeah. Well, and overgrowth. The Canadian government passed the War Measures Act on August 22nd, 1914, which then provided powers to intern all those who were from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, from the Ottoman Empire, and of course Germans, for those countries that we were at war with. And now we're up at the Monashee internment camp site, a site that has virtually been untouched for over 100 years. This is a record, this is history. To be able to have this information firsthand without anybody touching it for over 100 years and documented by Sarah and her team is unbelievable.
When we're excavating each of these artifacts, each of them has a story. So for instance, when we excavated a whiskey bottle from the POW side, once you realize that alcohol was prohibited for the prisoners, then you can go deeper and understand that this was actually contraband that's in the POW section of the camp, or bottle caps that are coming up on the hillside in the POW section. And you can picture, if you look around, where somebody would have sat at the end of a long day of laboring to have a beer or some type of beverage. With each of these artifacts that we excavate, we're able to piece together these fragments of history that are essentially lost in the historical record. Canadian bra measured, OXO. So this might be the cook tents. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. Good job, guys.
It really solidifies that this happened. The government destroyed the documents in 1954. So it was through descendants, through personal documents, that this was proof that this actually happened to our community and to these people, that they were unjustly interned. And I think what happened is he was arrested, sent to Vernon. That's how we got the early number. Sent out to Mara, may have been Monashee, because, right? That's why I'm thinking of the next connection. May have been Monashee. So when I'm following descendants' stories, and descendants are contacting me for information about their families, and most recently following the link of the story of Vasil Doshkach, here's a man, a young man, who came to this country for freedom, free land, and a better future, and finding himself arrested in Vancouver. I'm saying about Aunt Sadelain's dad is, I mean, you know, here's a typical rebel rouser, you know, fighting for everybody's rights. I can see why he would have been moved from camp to camp.
My name is Anne Sadelain. I'm the daughter of Vasil Doshkach, who was imprisoned in Canadian internment camps from 1915 until 1920. He was imprisoned not because of anything he'd done, but simply because he had come from Austro-Hungary, which was at war with Britain and Canada. I hope it'll come out. And, this is my father while he was at Morrissey. And these are some of his best friends. My father died when I was 8 years old. He had never spoken much about his internment to the children. It was never a surprise that what had happened. It seems to me I've always known that there was something in his background that was negative, bad. And but as we grew older, we started to ask questions. When I started to hear more and look into what happened in the camps, I became quite outraged. Many of them did not speak a word of English. And the camps were terrible places for them. There was a lot of illness. And mental illness. People committed suicide. Everything they wrote was censored, and it would take weeks for them to get a censor in. And so their communication with their families was often nil. And these boys needed help. The food at the internment camps was always terrible, and their clothing was not good for the weather. And often their shoes were completely worn out. My father spoke about taking all his newspapers and making soles for his shoes so that he could go to work. And they were badly treated by most of the guards. They felt like slaves. My father felt like a slave. He found out that because they weren't even prisoners of war, they were called enemy aliens, that he would have to work. They had to work. This upset him a lot. Oh, this is the YMC Service for Prisoners of War. And this is, well, you can see my dad's signature, always William. And they are writing that we must request you, for the sake of humanity, to inform the Royal Consulate of Sweden and the legal representative of our interests in Canada of these conditions, and to beg him to exercise his influence to have a stop put to the cruel treatment. He was a person who had learned previously that if he had a group of people, they would be stronger and they could go to the authorities perhaps more easily. So that got him into a lot of trouble, his groups that he would form. He came to Canada wishing to be a good citizen. He had dreams, he had hopes, and he was not afraid to work hard.
So the floors had tar paper beneath all of it, which probably speaks to how wet this area was.
There's some right there, Roger.
Yeah,
You can see a bit better. And all through here.
yeah. There's a big square.
Personally, it's because of the connection with my great-grandparents who homesteaded in this area, and my great-grandfather who did bring in the supplies and helped out at the camp. This is my great-grandfather, Benjamin Myers, who they both lived in this area, homesteaded up here. And this is Captain Clark, who was the Monashee camp commandant. So just being able to see this, all these planks that are coming up and the bases of the building is really great for me to witness. Looking at these artifacts and knowing that my great-grandfather probably was the one who brought them in here just brings a whole special connection, even more so to the site. They don't make them like this anymore. Definitely it's a solid steel hammerhead. In terms of when they did the construction, he was up here from the very beginning of the camp. So it could have been something he he brought for the guys who were building it. The camp was only open from mid-May that they started bringing up the internees up here. By July 31st, they said the camp was pretty much shut down. By September, mid-September, everybody was cleared out of here. And where that movement was is that these internees came from the Vernon camp. They were supplied here to build this road. The provincial and Dominion governments had come up here, and it was kind of a demand of the provincial government that, we have to get this highway in linking Vernon to Edgewood. So, hey, they got this cheap labor, let's make use of it. Once the camp closed, this camp closed up here at Monashee, they were taken back to Vernon. And from Vernon, again, they were then taken out to Mara, most of them, where they were building Highway 97A.
Pretty close to east-west.
It's a shoe? Yep. Can I see that part?
Of course.
No, their feet were just probably
The average height was
That's
like 5'6".
the nails.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Per mound.
Jeez.
But there were some that had ankle boots with putties.
It's about a 7.5.
We've had 2 shoes come up in this area.
Oh, neat.
An orange, McCullough's orange, the bottle
Golden
cap,
orange.
golden orange,
So
McCullough's.
McCullough's is in Vernon?
What else? Chantel hit a lot of cans in this area.
Oh, yes.
So we think this is likely not just the guards, but the officers section, because it's more central.
Sitting at this picnic table for 2 hours on my computer and analyzing where this tip of this mountain was in relation to these particular guards' tents, and realizing that we weren't actually close enough to be there. And when you drive up to the site, there's a little meadow area. And if you stand or hike down the road and compare where that is in relation to the mountain, I decided that we needed to move in that way. So we did a site reconnaissance yesterday morning and hit the entire north end of the camp that we hadn't found before, and realized that the photographs that we have are likely early photographs of when they set up the camp. Dating the artifacts from the north end of the camp tells us that we are in the same time period as this end of the camp. But what is so incredible about this camp is that it's on the side of a highway. It has not been developed in any way. It's literally untouched. And because of that, there is so much that we're going to be able to learn from Monashee.
The excavation this past few weeks, for someone like Anne Sadelain, who has lived with this crippling legacy, that this happened to her father, keeping the story alive, educating others, will give solace to Anne and other descendants. It validates that what happened to their families was wrong. We never want this to happen again. And so let's learn from that, and let's make sure it doesn't.
you.